here the Screw Innovations tank lever Shore 4 combo kit. I'm going to show you what comes in the box. Open this up real quick so you can see this is the tank lever Shore 4 combo kit. Open it up. First thing you'll see here is the note, never attempt to shift into four-wheel drive while the ATV is in motion. And you have here our other products, the tank lever which you received. The only one you did not is the KEBC delete. So here you have your tank lever and your manual four-wheel drive actuator, the Shore 4. Now that you've opened the box, you see what's inside. The first steps to installing your tank lever Shore 4 combo is going to be to remove these two panels here. There's 3 screws on this panel, one in the front, one on either side. There's 4 screws on this panel, one here, 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 and here, all the Phillips head screwdriver. Next step is going to be to remove your electronic two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive switch where your tank lever is going to go. If you follow the wire down, there is a connector right here, a 2-pin connector. Push down on the front of the connector here to release it. Okay, and this is replaced by the connector on the tank lever. Next, unscrew the 3 screws underneath this, and then the entire switch will be able to come off of the handlebars. After removing the electronic switch, the next step will be to remove the diff lock cable. That'll be replaced by the cable on the tank lever. This diff lock lever you don't want to get rid of because we have the nice winch accessory to use this lever for. So right now I'm using an 8mm wrench to remove this top screw from this lever here. Okay, you have the screw, the washer, and be careful, in here is another little part you don't want to lose. Like that, here it is. Okay, you got those 3 pieces out. Next, you need to use the same 8mm to remove a screw on this side here that holds the cable in place. Right here, remove this. And this little plate that locks the cable in can now come out. This piece here. The lever can now be removed from the cable like that, and the cable can now be pulled back, slid over, and pulled out of the rubber housing like so. Now we go to the other side of the cable down at the differential. This here is your stock diff cable that you will be removing. The nut right here and the nut right here. You need to unscrew the 2 of these. This bottom nut needs to be removed completely, and then the cable will be able to be removed from this bracket and from this lever. Okay, now that I got the diff cable removed from the bottom, I can pull the entire cable out carefully, slide it out from up here, and now everything that needs to be removed from the bike is done. Now we can install the tank lever. We are going to run the cables and the electric down the front here. So the 2 cables are going to go behind this part here, this metal bracket here, and this metal bracket here. The one cable has an O-ring on it. That's the one that's going to go to your manual actuator. So you're going to want to run, they actually both run down the right side of the bike, and then the diff cable runs across the bottom, and the four-wheel drive cable stays on the right side. So you can run them in many different ways. Just make sure you keep very large sweeping bends and you do not get any tight kinks. Okay, now that I have the two cables ran to about where they're supposed to go in the final positions, one on either side of the bike, I have run the electric down following the same path as the cables. And on the end of these, you can see these two connectors. This connector will go where you unplug your electronic four-wheel drive actuator. Show you that on the other side in a minute. This one goes where you have just unplugged your electronic switch from. So plug this in exactly where it was before. Just like that. Okay. Screw your tank lever back into your throttle assembly here with the 3 stock screws. Put these screws back in. The next step now will be to raise the bike up, put it on jack stands, and remove this wheel here for easier access to your electronic actuator. Now I have the wheel off, and I've also drained the oil. That's something you should do before this next step as well. When you remove the electronic actuator, some oil will come out of there, so draining the oil will prevent that. So next step will be to remove the 3 screws that hold on the electronic actuator. These are the 3 screws on your electronic actuator, on your front differential, that we're going to remove. And then if you follow this wire up, goes behind over here, okay, and it comes out right here. This is the connector. You should be right around here. It's a 6-pin connector. This is what you're going to unplug, and this is where the 6-pin connector from the tank lever will plug into. Undo this connector. You're going to push on this tab in this direction. So I'm going to lift this tab. I know it's hard to see, but I'm going to lift this tab as I pull that apart. With those 3 screws out and the wiring unplugged, I can remove my actuator. Okay. And your electronic actuator is removed. Now to install your mechanical manual 4-wheel drive actuator. The O-ring that comes in the bag with the lid here and the gasket will be used. This O-ring will be placed around this cylinder right now as we dry fit the mechanical actuator and hook the cable up. Now that this O-ring is on, I'm going to dry fit the actuator on using the 3 stock screws. I'm not going to put the lid on yet. I'm going to do this so that I can adjust the cable and make sure everything is good. So this is the orientation it goes on. The collar should be in this down position like this, which it naturally wants to fall in anyway. And inside your differential, you need to make sure that the collar in here, you can feel it sliding back and forth. Make sure that it is to the right, all the way in that direction.
That's to the front of the vehicle, Joe?
To the front of the vehicle, yes. And that is the 2-wheel drive position, which your mechanical actuator naturally goes to by the spring pushing it in that way. So this here is how we are going to install it right now. It can need a little finagling to get in there, but it does. You will definitely be able to tell like that when it goes all the way in. Now, put these screws in. You can use just 2 screws right now. When you dry fit it, you just want to hold it all the way on to the differential as you install the cable. All right, see, that's all the way on there. 1 more screw for now. Okay.
So you have 2 screws in it now, Joe?
I have 2 screws just snug holding the actuator on with no lid on it, so that I can now take my 4-wheel drive cable, which has the O-ring pre-installed on it, remove the 1 nut all the way off, completely off, slide the cable through the hole in the front of the actuator, and then put the nut back on. Get it on so not too much thread from the cable comes out. Just like this. All right. You can tighten it and be sure that your cable is in the position you want it to stay in now. Elbow going up just like this. Tightened now. This will not be adjusted again. Okay, that's very tight. Make sure this is all the way in the 2-wheel drive position, and then go back down and make the final adjustments on it. This part of the cable here is the adjustment. So you want to adjust this. I am loosening it right now to get the cable to the point where it falls right in to the block here. Okay, and then stay down here now, Dad. And then I am going to, right now I am putting the lock nut in place so that this doesn't move. The next step will be to rotate the 4-wheel drive lever up top at the tank lever. So I am rotating it right now to the 4-wheel drive position. Get it all the way in the 4-wheel drive position, and I want to make sure that there's no play left here. So I can't push that any further. That tells me that it's all the way in the 4-wheel drive position, and when I rotate the tank lever back to the 2-wheel drive position, that shows me that it's all the way in the 2-wheel drive position. This shows me that this adjustment is good and everything is perfect. It goes all the way to 2-wheel drive and all the way to 4-wheel drive. I cannot push it any further. It's all the way in the 4-wheel drive position. I can now tighten this nut up so that this adjustment will not move. Now that the cable is fully adjusted, I am going to put the lid on. First, I'm going to put this gasket on, peel the white part off on the back to stick it on. So I'm going to remove the 2 screws that we had put in before. I'm going to stick this gasket on and then put my lid on and the 3 screws for the complete installation of the manual Shore-4 actuator. Making sure that there's no oil on here. And now I am peeling the white part off of the back of the blue gasket, lining it up with the holes and sticking it in place. Actuator back in place on the differential. Okay, the blue gasket's in place. Shore-4 is back on. Got 1 screw in, put the other 2 screws in, and the installation is complete.
What about tightening it down, Joe? You don't want to over tighten?
You don't want to over tighten it. Just snug with a driver like this. You don't need to use a ratchet to get this in. So we have the manual actuator installed. We have the wiring all connected. We have the diff lock cable installed, the diff lever and the original cable removed from the bike. Everything is set now. We need to put the wheel back on. We need to put the plastics back on. This plastic here has these 2 wires that need to plug in exactly where you removed them from before. Once you do that, you plug those in down there. Put this back on. Okay, it's got the 3 screws that go on. Then put your front panel back on. It's got the 4 screws that you removed before. All right. No cutting necessary. This is from the hand lever design that we have, which is still available. We still have that, but with this design, you do not need to do any modifications to the plastic, to the wiring, or anything. On the dash, it is blinking 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive. That is because we did not install our wiring harness, but everything is still working. You won't be in limp mode here. We still have our KEBC actuator on there. So I'm going to plug in the KEBC actuator wiring harness that we have here. This does not mean you need to remove your electronic brake control. This just means that your display lights will work properly. So I'm going to plug this in. Plug this in. Make sure you turn the bike off, the power off when you do this, and then turn the power back on. Okay, now with this installed, you can see the display is on 2-wheel drive. Okay, I'm going to rotate the lever now, and you can see it went to 4-wheel drive all the way, and it's in. I'm Going to rotate it back to two-wheel drive. And then if you look at our tank lever here, you can see that when I rotate the diff lever on the front, the light comes on. And we know that we are in diff lock now. That's with it off. That's with it locked in diff lock all the way. And the four-wheel drive lever on top. And the indicator working properly with the addition of our KEBC wiring harness, which is not absolutely necessary. It's only necessary if you want to have the display lights working properly, and then you can remove your KEBC actuator, but you do not have to. It will still work exactly from factory if you leave it installed. Manual four-wheel drive will always work. When you rotate that lever, you know it's in four-wheel drive. You don't need the display lights to tell you that anymore. You pulled that cable, you know you're in four-wheel drive.
Right.